It really was tremendous, and I'd love to relive those memories again.
Well, to score the winning goal in the last minute in a cup final, especially the FA Cup final, which to me is the biggest single game in the world, probably, club-wise. It's every schoolboy's dream, and it's just something that I've managed to fulfil. So, and I still feel like a schoolboy about it. I look back at it now, I remember the goal, I remember the celebrations, and I get a tingling feeling. And I watch the other cup finals and things like that, and it just brings back memories. It's a wonderful feeling.
We'll never forget the last 10 minutes of that final. That's Hendon Hall, a venue, a mile or two up the road from Wembley, really, where Newcastle United have based themselves these past 3 or 4 days, and they're hoping that it proves to be lucky for them, as it did for England in 1966. That was their World Cup final headquarters. Earlier today, Stuart Pearce, who we've met once today already, very happy, very relaxed, and looking forward to their big day out. Smile. We're in the company today of 3 Wembley finalists, Alan Smith, Gordon Strachan and Chris Waddle. We'll talk more shortly, but first of all, it's back out to the VIP terrace to rejoin Gabby Yarroth. What's happening out there now, Gabby?
Well, the sun went for a while, but when you came back, Richard, of course, it came back out. The fans are still teeming around here, making lots of noise. Can hardly hear myself think, and we're seeing lots of celebrities. And a man I'm sure you'll be very pleased that I've managed to grab hold of here is a legend on Tyneside. He left the club, of course, last season, but the fans have still got a very large space for him in their hearts. It is indeed Kevin Keegan. Kevin, it must have been a horrendous wrench for you actually leaving Newcastle. It must have been very difficult.
Obviously, Gabby, I had a great time up there, however many years I was there. It was a terrific time, terrific fans, and the players were terrific, everything was terrific really, but it weren't easy leaving. I did decide to go when it weren't easy. That day, particularly when I decided to leave Newcastle, very hard leaving, because the traffic on the A1 was a nightmare.
I didn't see that coming at all there, Kevin.
I like a bun, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you must now, of course, be looking to the future.
That's
Fulham,
right.
Disappointing end to the season, but you've got to be positive about next season at Fulham, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. What's happening at Fulham's been terrific, and the fans there, they're terrific. The players, they're terrific as well, and I tell you, we're all looking forward to next season. I'll tell you what, we're all fired up by the prospect of next season. All fired. You get it?
Very much so. Always likes a pun, doesn't he, Kevin Keegan? Well, I think you'll agree that was a terrific interview. But I've got a man who is not so keen on the puns and likes to talk a good game. I know he'll be looking forward to this. Jimmy Hill, who do you think has got the edge, Arsenal or Newcastle?
Well, I think it's very difficult, my dear. There's not an awful lot to separate these two teams today, apart, my dear, from the fact, of course, that Arsenal are a lot better. And, of course, they did finish 12 places and 34 points ahead of Newcastle in the Premier League there, my dear. But, it could be anybody's game today, but really, these teams have met, we should remember, in the FA Cup final before, once in 1932, again in 1952.
Surely that's slightly irrelevant, isn't it?
An elephant? No, I think it's Ian Rush. But no, I think it's I think it's very relevant, because Newcastle won that day 1-0, a goal from George Robledo. He was a lovely player. I'm sure you don't remember him, my dear. And I think that result, even though it was 46 years ago, could have a great psychological advantage for those Newcastle
Maybe we'll just have to
today.
differ on that point then,
Well,
Jimmy. But just briefly,
yes.
Looking ahead away from the FA Cup to the World Cup, I know you're really excited about the World Cup, aren't
Certainly
you?
am, my dear, yes. And I saw Craig Brown just down there a minute ago, and I said to him, Craig, you're off to France for the World Cup? He said, yes. Toulouse? I said, yes, I expect you probably will.
Thanks
He wasn't too happy
very
about
much, Jimmy. Great to speak to you. And I'm sure I'll have some faces from the world of football and also perhaps some non-footballing stars for you a little later on. Thanks, Richard.
Yes, thank you, my dear. More from Gabby Yarroth later. Well, Arsenal are here today for their 13th FA Cup final. Martin Tyler tells us how they did it.
Arsenal was slow into their stride in the FA Cup, held at home by Port Vale, and then in the replay until extra time.
Bergkamp. Oh, it's a great try, and Dennis Bergkamp has produced a magnificent goal. Gareth Ainsworth for Port Vale. And the level, Wayne Gordon.
So to penalties, and again the Gunners started poorly. Lee Dixon. But David Seaman, a bogey man to many a penalty taker, and this time to Ian Bogey. Eventually, Alan Tankard had to score.
Tankard has missed. Arsenal are through by the narrowest of margins.
A potentially difficult trip to Teesside in round 4, but Arsenal in front inside 2 minutes, Mark Overmars. Paul Merson would score late on against his old club, so Ray Parler's first half goal was in the end decisive.
A chance for a second, and he finishes it with style.
Home advantage again not taken in the 5th round, but Nicholas Anelka nipped past Crystal Palace early in the replay. Dean Gordon was then sent off for a foul on Anelka. From the free kick, Bergkamp's shot deflected in by Mark Edworthy. 2-1 the final margin for Arsenal. Problems at Highbury again in the quarter-final. West Ham in the lead, Ian Pearce. But Pearce then tripped Martin Keown. Penalty.
Dennis Bergkamp with the opportunity to bring Arsenal level. And takes it.
The saviour became the sinner in the second game. Bergkamp sent off and suspended from a semi-final if Arsenal could get there.
Overmars. Vieira. Anelka. Oh, great goal! The team with 10 men have taken the lead.
But former gunner John Hartson scored against Arsenal for the first time, so it was extra time and penalties.
Here comes Tony Adams. And there's a goal for Arsenal. It's Arsenal's night. The double still very much on for them. They are into the semi-finals of the FA Cup.
In the semi-final at Villa Park, it was Arsenal against First Division Wolves. 1 goal after only 12 minutes was enough.
Terrible mistake there by Sagers, presenting it to Vieira, who goes all the way and finds Ray! Arsenal take the lead!
Arsene Wenger's men are now just 1 game away from equalling the class of '71 at Arsenal and winning the double.
And on Cup final day, we're in the company of Alan Smith, Gordon Strachan and Chris Waddle. And I think, Chris, even the most ardent Geordie would concede, surely, that Arsenal are the better team today. Would that be fair?
Well, you've got to go off the league, yeah, definitely. The champions, as somebody said there, they're 30 points more. But the FA Cup's a little bit of luck involved, it's been proven. And if you look at Newcastle's run, the hardest game they've had really was Stevenage away.
But they have become the new entertainers, Alan, haven't they, Arsenal? Are you proud of them?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it's the old cliche about boring Arsenal, but it's nice to see it turned on its head. Just looking at that cup run now, I think that West Ham game, the quarter-final, that really was a moment in the season for the Championship, not just the FA Cup, where I think they had the belief that they could really make something out of it.
See, that was the acid test, wasn't it? George Graham made that point. The allegation was his team was boring, although you scored more goals in 2 seasons when you won the title than this team. He said, you know, these entertainers, they've got to win something first. They have now.
That's right.
And can they do the same here today, in the same style that they've played all season?
Yeah, I think so. The only concern is that their previous 2 games at Liverpool and Aston Villa, rather, where they played a shadow team up at Anfield, played the cup team as near as anything at Villa Park, and bad results. But I would expect them, obviously, this is the big one.
Well, let's get a neutral view on that. Can you turn it off and on? Did the Gunners switch off after they'd won the title?
Manchester United got beat 5-1 at Watford on the Monday night. We come here on the Saturday and played well. I think you can.
So the answer is yes.
You can. Although we shouldn't have allowed that night. Yeah, it was a bad performance. It was quite embarrassing, really. But we come, and Big Ron got tore on us after the game, quite rightly so. And you can do it. But I worry 2 games in a trot playing like that.
But this Arsenal team across the season, they've taken your breath away, haven't they? They've just been tremendous, haven't they, from start to finish?
They've been fantastic. But I must go back to a point when Alan played and when George Graham had the team, the game was different. So let's put that in perspective. It's far easier now to play the beautiful game of football.
Why?
Years ago when you had offside, passing back to the goalkeepers, used to see it back to the goalkeeper, goalie would hold it, everybody up to the halfway line, they would come up to the halfway line. There was 2 teams playing within 5 yards of each other. Now when you pass it back to the goalie 18-yard line, the ball goes forward and you play there. That is your line at the 18-yard line. Now it's far easier to play the beautiful game they're allowed to. I think what happened, George Graham and the Arsenal team knew the rules, knew how to win games then, and went about using their rules to make sure they won the Championship. So if you leave them in that area, when the game itself wasn't a great period in football, if you think of it, wasn't it? Great entertainers. And you take it now, the game itself, as we've been saying on Sky Television for the last 3 or 4 years, the game has got far better, allowing top-class players to come here and be able to play with the space they're now getting.
That's a very reasonable point. Time to meet a Geordie who is mad about the Magpies, of course, and you can bet that he's on a Newcastle win today.
Away the lads. Do you know, I think we're going to go back to the 1952 Cup final. You're too young to remember that. But Arsenal,
Only just.
Arsenal played Newcastle then, and the great Arsenal fullback Wally Barnes, and he worked for the BBC afterwards, a lovely man, Wally, he was injured. And in those days, they had no substitute rule. So Arsenal played with 10 men for most of the game. They were absolutely besieged, and I think it was George Robledo, I think, scored in the last few minutes for us. We beat Arsenal 1-0. They are the 1-0 team of the 90s, Arsenal, 1-0, 1-0. We get a few 1-0s, I think. It won't be a great cup final. It cannot be with two teams like that who are going to play so much method football. But away the lads. Don't we deserve to win our 4th cup final since the war? I'm praying for away the lads, Newcastle, and I go back to 1952. We did Arsenal then. I think we'll do them again. Maybe 1-0.
Well, Newcastle made the last of their 11 final appearances back in '74, later in the final that John was talking about there. They didn't win then. Arsenal are here for the 13th occasion, their first final since George Graham's team beat Sheffield Wednesday and Chris Waddle. 1998 is the year that we concentrate on now in the sunshine. Beautiful, beautiful afternoon. And the atmosphere outside continues in a very friendly, cordial fashion. After the break, it's the Geordies we're talking about. Are they on course for a Wembley win?
Sunday. Win or draw, and the Premiership belongs to Newcastle. Lose, and it's all over. Will Harlequins play the final joker?
You'll have to go a long way to see better than that.
Or will Newcastle be crowned champions? Ford Rugby Union, Sunday at 12, live on Sky Sports 2.
You know, we're still the land of Meals on Wheels. And in Lancashire, you can still get a great hot pot. Or go to Edinburgh and see the tattoo. And of course, the British male is still not considered as amorous as his Latin counterpart. It's good to know things haven't changed a bit.
One of these musicians suffers from diarrhea, but thanks to a brand new remedy, Chewable Imodium Plus, it needn't disrupt his life. One dose works with your body to stop diarrhea and help restore your normal balance. To get on with your day, get new Imodium Plus.
They're wild, wicked,
you're good, you know that,
and dying to play with you.
There's no one to trust.
Kevin Bacon, Matt Dillon, Nev Campbell. Wild Things.
Looking good, over. 20 seconds, everything looking good. Show about 47,000. Status check,
Samsonite. World proof.
She's the kind of girl you meet on a 30,000 feet. She's a winner, 'cause no matter what takes place, there's a smile on her face. She's no quitter, she's a lady. Whoa, 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 no cry, baby. Talking about an airline lady. And this lady is fine, 'cause she's had a weed of fix. She can cope with all their tricks and their medicine. She's a lady. Whoa, 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 she's a lady.
Have you had your Weetabix?
Oh, that's a stroke of genius. And what a stunning finish.
Cuprinol Exterior Wood Stains. There is nothing like the feel of a new car. The look, the shine, the smell.
Now Armour All have bottled it. Armour All Protectant. It protects, it shines. It's new car juice.
Tomorrow with the Mail on Sunday and continuing with the Daily Mail, you could win £50,000 a year for life. Imagine being free from all your bills, free from that mortgage. Imagine being so free you never have to work again. £50,000 a year every year for the rest of your life could be yours. Tomorrow with the Mail on Sunday.
The Rover 400. From £11,500 with free second-year servicing and warranty.
Kick off at 3. Newcastle United are the first of the two teams to arrive at Wembley. And that, by the way, is the first sub of the day, that coach. The original broke down this morning with a flat battery, so they brought that in order to get them to Wembley. I think it's the first hiccup in their cup run, isn't it? The 11th occasion the Geordies have been to Wembley. Can Kenny Dalglish deliver the FA Cup? First sniff of the stadium. To some degree, as we were saying on the Footballers' Football Show last night, the day for the players starts now. This is the business end. Anyone recognise the music? That's too young for me. It's too young for me. Terry McDermott, who was here in '74 with Newcastle when Liverpool took them apart. Kenny Dalglish, who makes his 27th appearance at Wembley today as a player and manager. It's an extraordinary record, that. Alan Irvine, first team coach, and Tommy Craig there, who joined when Tommy Burns went to Reading. And nobody else seems too keen to join us. Terry Genno, the goalkeeping coach, and Stuart Pearce, who skippered Forest here and was a loser. Ian Rush, who knows only about winning at Wembley, Mr. FA Cup in many respects. Warren Barton there, a Gunners fan, of course, born just up the road from Highbury. And this means it gets real from now. Robert Lee, the skipper, what a day for him. Dabby's ass, where was he 6 weeks ago? Alan Shearer, Daddy Cool. Black and white blood in his veins, and no one will be looking forward to this more than him today. It's Wembley Stadium here on Sky Sports 2 for the 1998 FA Cup final. It's Arsenal against Newcastle United. And how he's got that on, I don't know. It is so warm today. At least he's without the shirt, isn't he, to be fair? Great atmosphere, friendly atmosphere. For the Gunners, of course, it won't have escaped your notice, on for the double. Tony Adams picked up the championship trophy, what was it, a couple of weeks back? So they're on for the first time since 1971. The skipper then was Frank McClintock. So what does he remember about it all?
I played 65 games that season. I was 31 years old. I played most games in front of 60-odd thousand people, shouting and screaming, giving instructions, patting people on the back, and I was absolutely gone at that final whistle. It was 90-odd degrees in the stadium. It went to extra time. I was so tired I could hardly get up those steps, and I never felt the way I wanted to feel because of the tiredness. I was an empty shell inside. I'd given everything I had. I had nothing else to give. So that's the main thing I remember about the cup final. I think actually this season, when I see Arsenal going for the double, it brings back a lot of memories, and it makes me feel how great it was and what a fantastic achievement it is, and how superb you have got to be to win it. This is what we won actually. This little thing here, that square there is a Football League Championship, and I thought it was an atrocious trophy for anyone to get after playing 42 games home and away. And because of that, I got this silver sort of a half football belt, and then I put the cup final medals on it. And this little one here is the one that I think and hope Tony Adams might pick up. That's the winner's medal.
Oh, fingers crossed if you're a Gunner. Tony Adams, who's hoping to follow in Frank McClintock's footsteps today. They've made a change from their traditional base. They are not at Sopwell House today. This is Arsenal at London's Chelsea Harbour, again just down the road. The men in black. Very businesslike gentlemen. Very hot, I would have thought. Ian Wright, does he start today? Poor old Dennis Bergkamp there has been such a big part of Arsenal's season. Failed a fitness test yesterday. That was a little earlier. And here they are, live, arriving at Wembley, with a coach to match the suits, it seems. Very well thought out. If their game plan is as good, Newcastle United will not win here today. Arsenal, it seems, have not missed a trick. Come on, Alan Smith, you've been here. Am I right? Does it start now for the players? Is this the first time when you get in the stadium?
It's a magical moment when you just drive up through the throng of people and those double doors shut behind those huge double doors, and you get out, and often you've got a lucky song on the radio, on the cassette, and that's when it starts. Dump your gear in the dressing room and usually have a stroll up the tunnel into the sunshine.
Choice of clothing's important, isn't it?
I think
got to get that right, haven't you?
I think they look smart, yeah.
They look well done,
normally for away games, home and away, they've worn tracksuits under Arsene Wenger, but it's a nice tradition where the cup final suit.
Are you a more traditional man, Gordon? Do you like a suit?
That looks like the Corleone family's day out there. It looks mafia get together.
Maybe that's the mood they've come here in.
Well, to be fair, that Arsenal back four are probably more evil than the mafia, so they're well suited out.
Well, that's the Gunners, the champions. Well, let's talk about Newcastle United, who by their own admission have had an awful league season. There was, of course, the famous Champions League win over Barcelona. Other than that, the FA Cup has provided the only highlights. Here's Martin Tyler again.
It was a tough start for Newcastle at Goodison Park, but that perennial scourge of Everton, Ian Rush, stepped off the bench for his 44th goal in the FA Cup, and that was enough to put Newcastle through. A fourth-round draw against Conference Club Stevenage brought much debate, but the tie was staged at Broadhall Way, and it seemed to suit Alan Shearer.
Cross looks for Shearer, finds Shearer, and Alan Shearer is back in some style. It's in! Graziani!
The first game had been a close call for Newcastle, so was their opening goal in the replay. Mark Smith reaching another Shearer header, but the goal given. The non-leaguers did score in the second half, only after Shearer had pounced again.
And it is 2-0. He's done it again.
John Aldridge then brought Tranmere to St James's Park. A wonderful cross from Pistone, Shearer's fourth FA Cup goal of the season, all headers. It was the conquerors of Manchester United for the Magpies in the quarter-final. Barnsley were quickly behind.
Lee gets by it. There's a goal for Newcastle. Now it's Anderson. Can he go on here? Watson starts to come. Anderson can't beat the goalkeeper. Gary Speed follows up. It's 2-0 to Newcastle. Sheridan can't get there, but it is steered in by Andy Liddell, and Barnsley are back in it.
But David Batty made sure of Newcastle's first semi-final for 24 years. The Toon Army out in force at Old Trafford, Newcastle United against Sheffield United.
Newcastle United struggling to get goals in the Premiership. With all this pressure, can they find one in the semi-final? And Alan Shearer has found one!
Alan Shearer had settled it again. No silverware for Newcastle since 1969. Kenny Dalglish out to change that today.
You think about what's happened this season to Newcastle United, Chris, I'm almost embarrassed to ask it. It's such a tired old footballing question, but is their name on this trophy? Do you get the feeling it's Newcastle's year?
I do, yeah. I think it's been hard for Kenny. You know, a lot of players have left, the Ginolas and Ferdinands, and he's had to bring other players in. It's taken time. You know, they've had 4 or 5 great years with Kevin, and it's taken a change, and he's changing it slowly rather than quickly like they have in the past. But yeah, I believe their name's on it. Yeah.
There's the Geordies. But it's been such an awful league season. How different can it be in the Cup?
I think when you're playing the cup, it's it's the cup competition. You can say relax a little bit. No points at stake. Obviously, you get to the next round and you go on. But as I say, once you start winning a few, I mean, you look at some of the goals against the Everton and against Stevenage. They hung on at Stevenage. And we saw the first goal. People say it didn't cross the lane, and they probably started believing, thinking, yeah, we're going here. We're going to go all the way.
Chris Waddle, Geordie hero from the past. Here's the current favourite, the England skipper, Alan Shearer, with George Gavin.
Alan, you've been here many, many times. What's it feel like coming out as the Newcastle number 9?
I don't think I've ever been here when it's been so hot. It's absolutely roasting out there, and God knows what it'll be like when people fill the stadium. But it's tremendous. My first FA Cup final. Let's hope it's one to remember.
Are you happy to go into this match with everything out of the way in terms of the FA?
Yeah, it's been out of the way in my mind for a long time. I always said I was innocent, and I've been proved that.
And what about the game itself? You go in as underdogs. Is that happy about that?
Well, rightly so, because of Arsenal's record over the past few months, and they deserve a champions. It'll be a tough game. If we're going to win it, we're going to have to be at our best. We know that, but who knows?
Thanks very much. All the best.
Cheers.
Alan Shearer with George Gavin. It's Wembley today. Gabby Yorth so far has met a host of different faces outside on the VIP terrace. Who have you got there now, Gabby?
Well, I could have sworn I just had Alan Shearer up here, but perhaps it wasn't him after all.